Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning or good evening, wherever you are based in the world today. Thank you for joining the latest Boutique Hotel News webinar. And today we're going to be talking about affordable luxury and the budget boutique boom. For those of you who might not know me, my name is Eloise Hanson and I'm the editor of Boutique Hotel News. And BHN is an online multimedia trade publication which covers the global boutique, lifestyle and luxury hotel industry. One of our series sponsors of these webinars is hospitality software company Agilysys, and we have Paul Finch on the call today to offer a short introduction. So Paul, over to you, my friend.
Yes, thank you, Louise. Hello and good afternoon to everybody on this webinar. It's a pleasure to join you this afternoon, and Agilysys are delighted to be sponsors of this webinar. As Eloise has said, my name is Paul Finch. I joined Agilysys earlier this year, so I'm relatively new to the company, but joined after they very much excited me with the products and services that Agilysys have to offer. So I was keen to join. My background before Agilysys, just to give myself a bit of credibility, was over 25 years at Micros and Oracle. So I do have an in-depth understanding of technology in our world of hospitality. So just as a quick intro to Agilysys, we're a global supplier of high-return hospitality technology, focusing with a supply of a rich ecosystem of solutions that can support you, help you to digitize and tailor your offerings, and help you to deliver personalized guest experiences to your customers. We're very much focused on innovation, AI being the key word in so much of what we do, and would love the opportunity at some stage to talk to many of you. So that's about me, that's about Agilysys. Please enjoy this afternoon's webinar.
Thank you very much, Paul. And further details about Agilysys have been popped into the chat if you're keen to learn more. Second sponsor for today is Ruckus, a provider of networking equipment. And this time we have a short video to play for you.
Ruckus solutions deliver operational efficiencies that are crucial for maintaining profitability and enhancing guest satisfaction. Improving staff safety and inventory management with location tracking and panic button solutions. Boosting employee efficiency to maximize time utilization for enhanced customer service. Every hotel system operating seamlessly under a single network for unified workflows and simplified management. Ruckus solutions empower hospitality businesses to reduce their environmental footprint, conserve resources, and contribute to a more sustainable future. Reducing energy costs with IoT-enabled thermostats for sustainability, and enabling remote monitoring and control of building systems and equipment. Designed to support current and future standards, protocols, and technologies, all fully backed by the expertise and support of a leader in hospitality solutions. Optimize every hotel with always-on Wi-Fi, smart technology, service efficiency, and customer loyalty, and sharing their experiences with others, so you can improve occupancy rates, RevPAR, and guest satisfaction scores. It's time to differentiate your property, minimize costs, and drive revenue performance. Unlock the future of hospitality with Ruckus Solutions.
And once again, further details about Ruckus have been popped into the chat there. So let's meet our speakers for today. And just for ease, I'm going to move from left to right as per the PowerPoint slide, and I'll ask each to introduce themselves individually. So Luke, let's kick off with yourself and welcome.
Thank you, Eloise. So my name is Luc Boschmans. I work for Tristan Capital Partners, where I look after hotels, meaning investments in hotels, but also asset management. So we have 3 different funds in which we can be active for hotels. So we have a core plus fund, a value add fund, and also a debt fund. So our latest hotel acquisitions or investments include, for example, the hotel in Manchester, but also the Point A portfolio together with Queensway, and the Ruby Emma in Amsterdam. So
super. And all affordable luxury or budget boutique brands.
that's correct, yeah.
There's a reason I got you on here, Luke. Fabian, over to you, my friend. Welcome.
Thank you, Eloise. Hello, everybody. I'm Fabian. I'm in charge of corporate development systems and new ventures with Ruby. So that means I had our global strategy department, be it digital strategy, or be it partnership strategy or portfolio expansion strategy. I've been with the company for 6 years, seen the company grow from 6 hotels and 1 workspace when I started, and now it's more than 20 hotels and plus 12 in the pipeline and 8 workspaces live. So pretty tremendous growth. And for those of you who don't know Ruby, we provide in a nutshell lean luxury hospitality services, so mostly hotels and workspaces across Europe, in European metropoles, and we also expand globally through partnerships.
Thanks a lot, Fabian. Aimee, welcome. Over to you.
Yes, hello everyone. So I'm Aimee Hodgkin. I'm the Hotel and Villa Partnerships Director at Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I lead the Hotel and Villa Partnerships team, and we lead the commercial strategy and performance of our whole collection. Our curated collection of just over 2,200 hotels, of the best hotels in the world, or so we think. But for us, budget boutique hotels are really close to our heart. They really give us an opportunity to highlight hidden gems, to help expose them to members and booking channels that they wouldn't be able to get alone. The Smith stamp of approval is hugely valuable for these kinds of properties. We're in a market that is so competitive and with very small margins.
Brilliant. Thank you, Aimee. Last but by no means least, Michele, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Delighted to be with you today. I'm Michele Fitzpatrick, and I'm the CEO of eviivo. For those of you who do not know eviivo, it's a software platform that is designed to help hospitality sector. We have about 27,000 accommodation providers running on the platform right now, and that they stretch from vacation rentals to B&Bs, to small hotel, to hotel chains, to very large or larger PMCs, property management companies. And our goal is to build a platform that is absolutely built-in, integrated, and affordable. Precisely, I'm just echoing what Aimee said. Margins are often low. People need efficiencies, and we believe that if you have tons of integration, it just makes everything more difficult. So we're trying to minimize that and provide full automation.
Thank you, Michele. And all the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers have been popped into the chat. I do encourage you to carry on this conversation long after today's webinar has finished. So a quick overview of how today's webinar is going to run. We'll spend around 45 minutes speaking with our panelists today, followed by some time at the end to take any questions from the audience. So this is a call out to our attendees today. If you do have any questions, please submit these using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens, and I'll get round to asking those as and when relevant. And today's webinar is being recorded, and everybody that has registered will receive a copy of that recording within 2 days' time. So before we dive into our main conversation, I always like to run through some context slides. This really helps to kind of beef out why we're here today. And the next 2 slides are really sort of examples of general activity in the affordable luxury sector over the last few months. We've seen that Molly's, which is the affordable hotel and motel brand from Soho House, has recently achieved B Corp certification. Prize Hotel, which is Radisson's affordable lifestyle brand, has just rebranded to Prize by Radisson. That brand has belonged to the Radisson family since 2016. So probably about 8 years now that the company's been part of Radisson. And we can also see Zedwell, which is the wellness hotel brand known for its windowless concept, is expanding to London. This is a retail site that is going to be converted into a hotel. And on the topic of development, on the next slide, one of these brands was mentioned earlier today, Yotel, has actually signed a new build project in Belfast, which is its first in Northern Ireland. And to support expansion goals, the affordable hybrid hotel brand Generator has just signed a partnership with Dusit to grow both companies' respective brands globally. And to finish up here, early this year, we saw Citizen M, which you may call like a budget boutique, has explored a potential sale as the company sought capital to fund its future growth. So lots of activity. And I hope that gives you a taster as to why we are here today. And let's move the conversation on to talk about affordable luxury and the budget boutique boom. And I would like to kick off with a question to Aimee. I am keen to learn about what the modern traveller is looking for. So what's new and how has this changed?
So I think, I mean, we'll all be feeling it, how the tastes of the modern luxury traveller has evolved over the last few years. Preferences have switched towards something more unique and immersive, things that go beyond the traditional high-end stays. And that's where budget boutique really comes into its own. We're noticing that it's a much more considered purchase. Travellers are maybe travelling fewer times, but staying a bit longer. We find that this falls into sort of 5 key themes. Authenticity being the sort of first and foremost. And I think for us, when we look at hotels to join our collection, a sense of place is absolutely the heart of everything that we expect. But we're noticing more and more that travellers are increasingly drawn to properties that reflect local culture, heritage and environment, and also are bringing the locals into the hotel themselves as well. And I think we have groups in the UK, like The Pig, that do this so well with their 25-mile menu, and to talk of B Corp, obviously they're now B Corp certified too, and a locally sourced minibar, or to look a bit further afield, places like the Standard in Bangkok, that has such an incredible list of events, calendar of events every year, that you can only bring everyone in to gather in one place. Also personalization and recognition. We're seeing the rise of loyalty programs, the success of loyalty programs, be that associated with internationally branded hotels or more independent loyalty programs as well. But our travellers are really looking for something that's a little bit more customized and a little less cookie cutter. Sustainability. So to come back to the B Corp comment earlier about Molly's, luxury travellers are much more conscious of their environmental impact, seeking out properties that demonstrate the commitment to sustainable practices, making sure that they're giving back to the community with incredible community programs and conservation efforts. Mr. and Mrs. Smith was B Corp certified in 2022. And whilst we can't change the way that our hotel partners are running their business, we can certainly hope to share best practices and try and be a real force for good in the sustainability world. And wellness, we're really noticing that wellness has massively evolved, less so about the big flashy spas and much more about leaning into what's around you. We're seeing a rise in forest bathing. Now that isn't having a bath in the forest, but that is actually immersing yourself in the forest and really leaning into all of the incredible nature that surrounds you. Something that for a small independent budget boutique hotel hopefully is a little bit more accessible and really leans into their location. Also, we have noticed that our members absolutely love to bring a taste of their holiday home with them, whether that is in the toiletries that they're using, that they have used at the hotel and purchased to bring home, the smell that is used at the property, the bed linens, or even just the Spotify playlist for that kitchen disco when they get home. We really notice that this is a shift in the desire for our members to get deeper, more meaningful travel experiences, really catering to their individual preferences and offering a sense of personal fulfillment that's much more individual.
Wow, there's lots of things that I tried to take some notes as you were talking, Aimee. So lots to dissect. Thank you so much. Michele, you mentioned on your platform that there are different types of accommodation that eviivo services or serves. Are you seeing how this shift in consumer behavior, what Aimee has just touched on, is being reflected in the demand for certain types of properties and stays? Can you elaborate on that for me?
Yes, we've seen a trend towards families, particularly young families, trying to lean more towards vacation rentals because they want the privacy, because it's sometimes difficult to control a 5-year-old in a hotel restaurant. Whereas couples and pensioners and business travelers who are coming back now tend to prefer hotels because whilst they may seek privacy, they want to have all the comfort and the service primarily. So that's one of the trends we see. But we see more and more hotels, especially in the mid-market or in the B&B space, that are becoming hybrids, where they can rent you an entire house or an entire hotel. If you take a 10-bedroom hotel, you could hire the whole place, or you could hire it room by room, and depending on seasonality, they will make one or the other available. So the hybrid model, which is a combination of self-service, accommodation, and the hotel full-service accommodation is becoming more and more popular. And I think we see accommodation provider or hotel chains converting from one or the other pretty quickly. One of our customers in Paris, for example, has just launched a new set of luxury hotels, but there is it's in fact the same as a vacation rental, except it's a townhouse in Paris, very well decorated, with a series of services that can get delivered to your room. So the models are changing more and more. And I think what's becoming really, really important for people are two things over and above anything else. One is your style. I think the new generation of travelers have all grown up with IKEA and Grand Design and Instagram or Etsy, and they're looking for something memorable, some room, something with cachet. So style is one, but with style, you have to have cleanliness. And I think cleanliness, especially after COVID, is becoming probably one of the number one criteria when it comes to defining whether or not you feel a hotel or an accommodation is luxurious. So that's rising in importance.
Thank you. I'd like to come back to Aimee, but again, anyone can sort of chime in on any of these questions. Just feel free to raise your hand. But Aimee, given everything that we've just dissected with Michele's answers too, what's fundamentally driving these changes, the traveller interest in affordable luxury and budget boutique? You can look at things such as the demand for experiences. You could look at the cost of living and perhaps travellers trading up or trading down. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think value for money is more important than it ever has been. We've noticed our members aren't afraid of those big ticket items, but they really want to make sure they're getting value for money. However, to go to Michele's point around the sort of younger traveller, with the boom in millennial and Gen Z travel, we're noticing that they're seeking many more authentic, unique experiences with accessible price points. And that's what's really driving the demand for us in the sort of lower end budget but luxury accommodation. I also think that since COVID and a lot of our hotel partners have relooked at their cancellation and deposit policies. And I think that they have been much more flexible, have been much more open to consider sort of free cancellation up until the day before departure, day before arrival, which was very much a city hotel behaviour before. Whereas now that sort of adaptation and addressing the needs of travellers, I think has given a lot more flexibility that's particularly valuable at the moment in these uncertain times, and particularly valuable, I think, when you're looking at a property that maybe is in the lower end of the price point, that isn't such a save up purchase. However, we know that this flexibility is troublesome for hotels. So we've got many of our hotel partners talking about they enter the month at one lower level of occupancy, and the stark difference even week on week. So it's really hard for hotels at the moment to budget accordingly, constantly in a state of reforecast, constantly in a state of sort of heightened stress. Everyone's trading hard as it goes along. So I think that's quite hard for the industry and something that we all have to consider when we're supporting them. And I think that as well, something else that has been an interesting shift is also budget boutique properties now expanding the package offering. So they used to be simple room only or bed and breakfast, whereas now we're seeing so much more, so many more properties, offering dinner, bed and breakfast packages. So really, from a value perspective, members and guests understand exactly what they're paying before they arrive. They can really budget for it and really account for it, and maybe spend a bit extra on the room because they know what dinner's going to cost them. And you have properties like the Galavant here in the UK that now not only does it offer a dinner, bed and breakfast price, but it also offers a complete Galavant package, is what they call it. And that includes sundowners, that includes yoga classes, it includes their signature sleep happy tray. And so I think what we've really noticed is the sort of boutique hotels that have traditionally been much more book the room, pay for everything else, and that's how they've managed to keep their rates low, are actually now benefiting from being able to sort of package that stuff all in now. And I think that it's something that we're noticing is increasing popularity with our members, and you're seeing that as well with the sort of rise of the all-inclusive property that isn't the traditional wristband and plastic cups, is much more luxury. But I think it's been really interesting to see how this market has evolved post-COVID and has had to think a bit more outside the box, and to try and capture some of that secondary spend that normally might go elsewhere. How do you get them to dine in your restaurant so that then you can capitalize on the drink spend, or they just stay for that little bit extra, extending their stay because they know that they've got their plans sorted out. And then, the digital nomad as well. I think that has really changed things. There's the horrible word, leisure travel, but the rising trend of that with the digital nomad, I think, is something that our budget boutique hotel partners have really benefited from, because they have a cool place to work downstairs. They've got an opportunity, with it being so much more affordable than a sort of traditional luxury hotel stay. People can extend for the weekend after they've been traveling to Barcelona for work. And so we're really noticing that has really helped to stimulate the demand.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Aimee. Luke, we've talked about trends, we've talked about shifting consumer preferences. I want to turn this conversation slightly to look at investment and investment interest within these types of affordable luxury and budget boutique hotels. From your standpoint, what's driving the investor profile towards these types of properties?
So, I mean, what we like about budget hotels is really the lean business models, right? So, when these hotels are doing well, your revenue flow through to profit can be very strong, right? And also, of course, when there is a period where things are not going so well, for example, during the pandemic, of course, budget hotels suffer a little bit less than more, upscale luxury hotels, right? So if we look at, I'll give you an example about our Point A portfolio. So if we compare our top line numbers to 2019, I mean, we're doing more or less the same occupancy, which is over 90% over the whole year, but with an average rate which is 30% higher than 2019. Of course, some costs changed in the meantime as well. Staffing, for example, utilities, so margins are different, but it's still, very, very profitable type of hotel to invest in.
Mm-hmm. And you just noted there that margins are changing, and you're investing in something. You've got to take that longer term view, right? So how are you assessing then that long term say scalability or profitability of like a mid-scale brand such as Point A?
Yeah, so I think when make investments in specific hotels, we spend a lot of time thinking about the product, right? So because we don't think that because it's an affordable hotel that you have to offer a bad experience. So I think it's been mentioned already a few times before. I think the experience is more and more important. Experience in a budget hotel is maybe a little bit more difficult. I mean, it's quite fascinating to think about, an experience, because in the end, what you're offering is more or less the same, right? It's a bed, it's a shower and an air conditioning, and so the hotel product didn't move that much in the last 100 years. But I think that's the fascinating part, to think about, how can we create an experience with having an eye on our cost base and our pricing, of course, because otherwise you're not a budget hotel anymore. It is all about value for money in the end, right? So and trying to get these repeat customers as well, because they're not going to come back if you're offering a very thin mattress or a very a bad shower experience. And that's why we really focus on, if we want to think about our long-term profitability, it's very important for us to keep an eye on guest satisfaction in combination with employee satisfaction, of course, which goes hand in hand. And I think if we get that right, in the end, we'll also be able to scale our portfolio, because if we can make sure that our profitability is sustainable, then we can also be a bit more aggressive sometimes on pricing when we're looking at new acquisitions, for example.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think that everything that we've touched on so far speaks to a need to innovate. There's lots of different levers that we've touched on, and I think that it's quite an exciting time to be a hotelier, because it's the boundaries are endless, or in fact the goalposts also keep moving. And I know I'm going to come to you a bit later on, Luke, all about how that mid-scale segment is starting to blur at both ends. So hold that thought. Fabian, let's bring you into the conversation here. You're heading up Ruby's development. And I would like to pick your brain as to what are the most promising emerging hotel markets?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, if we're looking at emerging markets as an operator, we as Ruby look into European metropoles. So there are certainly very interesting emerging markets in Southeast Asia, and in the US. There are always very dynamic markets that are absolutely worthwhile looking at in more detail and closely. But for us, again, we feel at home in Europe, and that's why we focus our attention there. And in more detail, I'd say currently it's been the more southern part of Europe that has been very interesting and dynamic for us. So we've been looking very closely at Lisbon, for example. Lisbon is thriving as popular tourist destination, and it's been becoming increasingly popular as tech hub, which brings a very good mix and stable mix of touristic travel, so leisure travel and business travel. Porto is an interesting city as well, yet smaller, and in these markets it's very difficult to find the right property. We'll get into how I think we'll get into how a good property can look like, or when it Luke certainly has his own view on when properties can be profitable. So have we, obviously. Athens is a very good market too. It's experiencing significant investment and demand, particularly in the boutique hotel sphere. And then we've been looking quite closely into Spanish cities, but they are more the, I would say, second tier cities. So think of Malaga, Sevilla, Palma de Mallorca, or Valencia, because they're getting increased attention from tourists who want to move away from the number one, I would say, cities and the traditional tourist spots. And they've seen pretty much growth in both leisure tourism and particularly in the lifestyle brands. And then there are two other categories of cities geographically that we think are interesting to watch. It's in the Baltics, the major cities in the Baltic areas, and the major cities in the Balkan region. So southern and southeastern Europe. However, for us, the rate levels there are still pretty at the lower end, I would say, and that's why we're watching those markets, but we're not engaging there actively. And in all of these cities, it's still so in the Baltics and in the Balkan region, we find it still difficult because of these low rate levels to find our sweet spot in the niche between mid-scale and luxury.
Mm-hmm. And Fabian, you mentioned during your intro that you also have the sort of co-working element of Ruby Hotels, and I think it was Aimee that talked about the digital nomads these days. As an example here, like how are these changing demographics and consumer preferences, like working and being a remote worker, influencing your development strategy when it comes to such things as location, the size of the property, the amenities that you guys are offering? How's the product itself flexing?
So in terms of location strategy, we've always followed the strategy to pursue, prime locations in, as I said, European metropoles, and our hotels typically have sizes between 120 to 350 guest rooms. So that hasn't changed because that has proven to be quite successful and a resilient location strategy for us. And our city concept simply works best in city center locations, and it's exactly there where our product delivers the most value for customers. On the other hand, we've developed a more, I would say, resort-like or retreat concept. So that was one of the more significant changes in our development strategy. So we've added a product type. And we think that is a good fit for locations and markets that are more leisure driven, where, as Aimee said, the average stay period is longer, and where the need for certain in-house facilities, which in our city center properties we don't have as much, is more important. So think, for example, of larger F&B offering or more generous outdoor facilities. Or even a reduced spa concept. Nevertheless, also in these retreat hotels, we still follow and maintain our lean luxury philosophy. So that means that we're still highly automating and centralizing our back of house processes. And if you brought the example of workspaces concept, so that is certainly also one of the key trends that we've seen. It's and Aimee said it's the ugly word, pleasure, but it's a big trend together with workation. And we have worked quite intensively in combining our workspace products, so the Ruby workspaces, which really is an offering of fully equipped and flexible workspace solution. It's actually made for the local business community, so it's not primarily or not only targeting at hotel guests. So it's a separate unit that really caters for business consumers business customers for office solutions. But we have focused our efforts to combine that with the hotel. So in most cases, the workspaces is then integrated into the hotel building, and there it's where synergies have been created and where we can really offer a super professional product for business travelers. So it's not I'm a hotel and offer you a seat in the lobby, but it's really everything that a modern business traveler needs, from height adjustable desks to fully ergonomic chairs to fully equipped meeting rooms, but even private desks for a day or for an hour can be rented there. And this is, I would say, the second most significant development in our development and product strategy, that as a result of changed demands from consumers.
Thanks, Fabian. Really interesting. I'd like to build on your answer here, because you've talked about amenities and you know, with the co-working, the spa, but I think Luke also mentioned sort of different service styles. And I'd like to bring Michele back into the conversation here, because this is all about the need to innovate, drive more revenue, drive profitability. So Michele, how can hotels or independent hoteliers even leverage their data analytics so that they can actually identify and capitalize on these new revenue streams and where customers are now choosing to spend their money?
Right. Well, I think there are two answers to that. The first one is, how well do they understand guest behavior? And the biggest issue here actually is not so much the tool you may use to analyze that, but the fact that in the heat of the moment, a lot of the time, they do not record information about the guest. So to find out what the guest needs, you need, when they ask you, when they speak to you, you need to make sure you've got a culture inside the hotel that is data driven, that collects that information. Sometimes travel agencies can help because they do a lot of data collection and they sometimes share it effectively. So you have another source there. But it's being able to recognize the guests that deliver the highest life cycle, value to you over time. Being able to recognize the guests that are regular, and being able to recognize the type of guests that are best seduced by the type of innovative accommodation style that you propose. And as I said earlier, style is everything right now, because people are going to react to that. They're going to seek differentiation through style, through image. So even the shape of the room, they're going to stay. And you need to understand who your audience is so that you can tune your channels accordingly. But to do that, you've got to get the data into the system. Getting it out is easy. Getting it in is usually the problem. So it's a source of data. The second part is, you mentioned forecasting and budgeting and low margin. I think that most tools today give you a lot of KPI, a lot of analytics, but the real issue is you need to understand your business. You need to understand its seasonality, both weekly, annually. But once you have those basic trend lines, it's not about churning tons of data, because you can have so much data, you get lost in the process. It's about understanding the very, very basic trend lines and being able to react very quickly and spot exceptions and anomalies very fast. So forecasting is in fact less important than spotting abnormal things. Taylor Swift comes in town, sure as hell something is going to change. So it's being able to react very, very quickly to changes, which is the value of forecasting and of establishing a trend line. And I think that once you have those two, you understand your guest and your audience, you understand normal versus abnormal. The rest of it is really about building your brand, your image, and building value-add services. I think the most effective practice that we've seen in hotels is making sure that people offer the cheapest possible accommodation with no bells, no whistles, nothing. And at the same time, the package, such as were described earlier on, to make sure that people who prefer the full service and want you to be around there and don't have to worry about anything can pay more to get that.
On that point, staying with you, Michele, for my next question, because we've talked about the desire and the need for experiences, whilst also providing value for money. How do you balance the two? How do you strike the perfect balance between delivering on both fronts?
Okay. Well, I think the first equation is time, because the biggest cost for most accommodation providers are usually staff cost. And whether it's your cleaning team, whether it's your service team, your concierge, you need to look very, very closely at what staff is doing all day long and see how many of the job, how much of the time they spend is spent on manual tasks and things that don't add a lot of value and could easily be automated. And with artificial intelligence right now, automation is going very, very fast. I'll give one simple example. When a guest stays at a hotel, particularly a boutique luxury hotel, they do not expect to have to deal with robots or system or cue cards or buttons all the time. They want you to be here when they need you to be here. And I think that, on the other hand, the guests that you have not secured yet, the guests who are browsing, trying to find a place to stay, the guests who are talking to a travel agency, then going to you via system, they're the ones who also have questions. And a lot of the time, that new business, the new guest that hasn't paid yet, that is not with you yet, gets very poorly serviced because they do not, they go on website, they never get to respond. They go in a lot of places and they find it very hard to get answers to the questions they have. And I think there's a lot to be said for using AI to help address prospective guests and make sure that they get the best answer as quickly as possible, in order to free time for the rest of your staff to make sure that they can give that more personalized experience to the people who have already paid or are already staying with them. That's it.
There's, I think you could almost have a separate conversation all around setting expectations. And you then feed AI into that mix and you're on a whole other different topic altogether. I would flag, if anyone is interested in learning about the use of AI in hospitality and real estate, me and my colleague George Sell co-hosted a webinar just last week where one of our panelists was an AI bot itself. I actually held my first live conversation with an AI bot. The recording is now out there. I'm sure my colleagues might be able to find the recording if anybody is interested in learning more, because that point, Michele, definitely came up during that conversation. Talking about sort of attracting new customers rather than those existing ones, Aimee, I'd like to sort of broaden our conversation to focus on independent hoteliers and maximizing visibility, because online presence is everything these days. Building on Michele's point of style and image, these travelers are going to be looking on all your social media channels before they decide to book with you, right? So how can independent hotels optimize their online presence in order to attract those experience-driven travelers?
So I think, as Michele said, one of the most important things about attracting new people is about understanding your audience and understanding your business, because otherwise you can copy and paste someone else's strategy, but your new customers will smell a rat. I think it's really important to make sure that everything that you do, all of your external representations of your brand, are true to your brand values. And I think that's really important, particularly when it comes to sort of budget boutique travel, because it is so much about the connection. It's so much about their independence and the sort of extra characteristics that define it, that I think it's even more standout when that doesn't work. So really, from a social media engagement perspective, establishing a really strong presence on social platforms, particularly Instagram and TikTok, because they are so experiential. Personally, I've only just downloaded TikTok as it's a bit daunting. So if anyone knows, has got any hints and tips, please shout. But I think it's really important to make sure that you're sharing content that really resonates with your audience, engaging with your followers, so replying to their comments to try and grow your community, responding to messages, encouraging user-generated content, whether it's you're using their images on your channels, whether you're using the broadcast channel. Mr. and Mrs. Smith have just launched our first broadcast channel last month, and it's been really interesting to see how people engage with that. Also, making sure that your website is truly mobile friendly. Is it as easy to navigate as your desktop site? I think that's where some of the newer brands are really on the forefront of this, making sure that they are accessible on the go. Retargeting and display advertising. So using retargeting ads to reach potential guests as much as possible that have shown an interest but haven't yet booked. How do you capture them? Where's that hook to get them in, where they're poking around your website but they haven't yet booked? How can we retarget them to get them to book and convert? Alongside a bit of display advertising to increase your brand awareness. How can we drive traffic to the website? You've spent such a lot of money on your website. How do we make sure that that's working really hard for you? And really specific, really targeted content marketing. content marketing can really help to be captivating and to really make those experiential stays really tangible. How do you have share-worthy content that you can really showcase your hotel and its distinctive offerings, characteristics, and opportunities that people can have when they're on property? I think if you can really harness that power of the opportunity to visually storytell, so really bring it to life, bring it off the page with high quality images and video. Video is something that is performs really, really well for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I think it really helps for people to envisage themselves there alongside some quick-witted editorial, because then I think you can really forge deep connections with your guests and you can entice them to book your hotel rather than your competitor. And then you've got search engine optimization. So making sure that your website is truly optimized for search engines, using your relevant keywords, or even those things that you strive to be. How do you bring people to your website that are really looking for something unique? Making sure your meta descriptions are up to date, all of your alternative tags are improved so that you are increasing your visibility in search engines, and focusing really on the local SEO. So to go back to my point earlier about bringing the locals in, really leaning into your local community, making sure that you're capturing that audience that are searching for local experiences and events, I think is really important as well.
Thank you, Aimee. Some brilliant points there. Bringing the conversation over to Fabian, once again, there are quite a few sort of technical features and functionalities have been included in today's conversation, especially with Aimee's response just there. Fabian, in your own experience, what tech capabilities do you believe are essential for success in the affordable luxury segment? And you can back of house, front of house, however you want to mold your answer.
Yeah, sure. So essentially, I would say essentially is a difficult word, but I'll try to put it into explaining what I think are the essential basics. So a few elements that I think are really necessary to run operations efficiently. So it's number one is, in my view, having a cloud-based PMS, so property management, that is open to third-party integrations. So where it's easy to try new things and where it's easy to integrate into the property management system, and to have a clear strategy how to make the most out of that system. And why is that so important? I believe it's so important because the PMS is really where the technology part of the hotel meets the on-site operations, and where there is the strongest touch point between tech and on-property staff. So that's also where, if you're not good at that, if you change that and become very good at it, it has the highest efficiency effects on operations. Second, essential basic, I call it, is a dynamic pricing and revenue management system. So that's something that should be seen as standard already. But if I book hotels with my families, I often see that in mid-range and upper budget hotels, oftentimes you still have very rigid pricing models, and that really doesn't help. So having a good revenue management system together with strong revenue management in-house or external capabilities is key for optimizing revenues and margins. And the third point I wanted to mention is, and that's, Aimee and Michele talked a lot about that already. So it's really, personalizing guest experience through a strong CRM that is combined, with powerful messaging tool, and then enhanced with self-service tools. So that's the basis for giving guests the power over their own journey and putting them in control over their own journey, serve them according to their own preferences, making sure that the offer you're providing them is tailored to their needs, and so eventually make them return and make them spend money and make them enjoy their stay.
Mm-hmm. And staying with you briefly, Fabian, how do you think that technology has actually contributed to the growth and the evolution of this mid-scale hotel segment that covers affordable luxury and budget boutiques?
Yeah, so in my perception, technology has actually been one of the key drivers of the lean or affordable luxury segment, because it made it possible to deliver a high-end product at a mid-scale price. So we, for example, at Ruby, we use technology to pretty much automate 80 to 85% of our back of house processes, and even a selected few but very key guest touch points. So that goes from invoicing, for example, or in the back of house, 80% of our accounting is prepared centrally and fully automated. HR processes, all the pre-screening, all the preparations of interviews is done with automation in the background, but also these key touch points that the guest actually see, and where you can make, you can either make a lot of mistakes, or you can really master these processes, like check-in, that we at Ruby perform or have our guests perform through a digital check-in kiosk. Yet this digital check-in kiosk is fully integrated into the bar, where there are always people from our staff. We call them hosts 24/7, because Michele is 100% right that guests who actually come to the hotel want to have somebody from staff attend them. And on the other hand, I think technology has helped individual hotels and smaller chains to get more visibility in the market. That is through booking platforms, for example. So they are now able to compete with larger brands, which was obviously very important for the sector. And from a commercial perspective, sophisticated channel managers with digital direct marketing tools, and paired with user optimized websites, as we just mentioned, and they really help maximizing RevPAR levels and margins, and that's obviously the #1 driver for having an industry in the sector survive and evolve.
Thank you, Fabian. You just mentioned the big brands. And we are seeing that all the larger hotel chains seem to be very bullish on the mid-scale segment at the moment. So much so that we are starting to see it, well, we have seen it divide. Affordable luxury maybe at one end, budget boutique at the other. You've got upscale, upper upscale, all within the mid-scale segment. I should flag, you've got mid-scale lifestyle brands, etc. Luke, do you expect to see further blurring at both ends of the mid-scale segment?
Well, before I answer that one, I just want to come back to the technology question before, which I thought was quite interesting, because I really think, that this is that it's quite interesting to see that a lot of the luxury brands now are thinking about how can we adopt technology coming from this, mid-scale hotels, right? I mean, just not so long ago, I was in Barcelona trying to check in a hotel, which is a luxury hotel, with one of the highest rates in the city, and it took them 10 minutes to check me in, right? So then you're thinking, okay, how is that possible, right? So when we introduced automatic check-in and the check-in kiosks in the Point A hotels, our guest satisfaction actually went up, because our hosts are a lot more focused on welcoming guests than doing the boring side of the check-in, right? So I thought that was quite interesting. And then on the blurring, I think the answer is clearly yes. There will be more blurring going forward, I think, because in the end, what investors are looking for as well is kind of like the best of both worlds, right? What you want is like strong ADRs combined with a cost base which is as low as possible. So we never invest in brand new hotel concepts, because we're not like opportunistic. But you can't imagine the number of people who approach us to say, hey, we have this new concept here, which where you will have a Hoxton vibe combined with a Moxie cost base, right? So there is a lot of people thinking about these type of concepts, right? How can you offer how can you drive rates, experience driven often, that's true, and maintaining a cost base which is interesting then for investors. And then what Fabian said, I mean, the founder of Ruby was one of the first people, I think, who really came with a concept combining this lean luxury model where you really focus on what matters, a great bed, a great shower with affordable pricing. And by offering this product, he was able to get a lot of very strong financial partners behind him to drive the growth of the company, which is phenomenal. I mean, Fabian mentioned it before. Yeah. And that's why I think that this will definitely continue.
What final word to you, Luke? Like, if there's going to be more brands or maybe already established brands looking to reposition, let's take the Prize Hotel story that I mentioned in the context, for example. They've just gone through a big rebranding. What challenges or opportunities does this present if this mid-scale segment is just going to slowly start broadening like this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, of course, I think that in Europe, in a lot of the markets which are relatively mature, this is also an opportunity because it pushes people to think about how can I gain market share with my hotel or with my concept through being more creative, right? And in the end, this is what boosts creativity, and I think it's a good thing that we have this phenomenon. So yeah,
I certainly believe in healthy competition. So watch this space. You heard it first at Boutique Hotel News. Well, I can see that we are very close to 3 o'clock, so I'm going to take this opportunity to say thank you to all our speakers. You've been absolutely fantastic today, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. Lots to dissect, lots to follow up on, and we're going to keep this webinar open for an extra 2 minutes right at the end to follow up, for our audience members to follow up on any of the links that we have popped into the chat there. I just have a few closing slides to run through before I say my official goodbye. The next webinar that we're hosting is actually 1 week today, same time, same place. However, we're going to be talking about optimizing operations with a modern point of sale. We would love to see you there. The link to register has also been popped into the chat. And if you're interested in working with us across our digital events or even our in-person events, do get in touch with my colleague Piers. His details are up on your screen now. So once again, thank you to our panelists for their contributions today. Thank you to Agilicis and Ruckus for sponsoring. And once again, we'll leave this webinar open just so that you have time to follow up on those links. But otherwise, I wish you all the very best of days, and I will see you same time next week for the next BHN webinar. Take care, folks.
Hello, we are International Hospitality Media, or IHM for short. IHM is the #1 brand to engage with decision makers in hospitality and real estate. Our 4 multimedia brands lead their respective sectors with breaking news, comments, trends, and opinions across a variety of multimedia solutions. We provide an inspirational community to connect people through world-class events, webinars, podcasts, award schemes, and much more. But let us share our story of who we are and what we do. Over 10 years ago, Piers and George had a light bulb moment to provide expert opinion, comments, and low-cost digital content. And so, they went on a journey over the past decade, creating media platforms to serve the hospitality and real estate industries. We now have an engaged audience with a reach of over 60,000 monthly visitors across our website. 52,500 in our email database across all sectors, and over 68,000 across our social channels. Everything we do challenges the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. We make things simple and very easy to work with us, and we're a friendly bunch too. We offer creative solutions to help you achieve your business goals. Read, watch, listen, and meet with IHM. Connect with us for a chat today. Just look at some of the brands we have worked with recently.